How is it that while everyone else grows old, Adaku remains young year after year? Let's find out in this very interesting story. In a village far away, there was an old woman named Adaku. She had lived there for as long as anyone could remember, yet she never seemed to age. While other villagers grew old, wrinkled, and frail, Adaku remained youthful. Her skin was smooth, and her eyes sparkled as though time had no hold on her. The villagers whispered about her, suspecting she had a secret that kept her young, but no one knew for sure. Adaku lived a quiet life, keeping to herself. She didn't have many friends, and though people often greeted her with smiles, there was always a sense of curiosity and suspicion behind their eyes. Some wondered if she had found a magical potion, while others thought she might have made a pact with the spirits. Despite the rumors, no one ever questioned her directly. Adaku carried on with her daily routine, gardening during the day and retreating into her small hut at night. She always locked her door tightly, but the village was peaceful and no one expected any danger. One day, a young girl named Ifunanya moved into the village. She was kind, helpful, and loved by everyone. Ifunanya quickly became friends with many people, including the elderly. She often helped them with chores, and Adaku was no exception. Though Adaku was not very talkative, she appreciated Ifunanya's visit and the way she brought life and warmth wherever she went. The villagers soon noticed that Ifunanya spent more time with Adaku than anyone else. They thought it strange, but Ifunanya only smiled and said, "Adaku is a lonely woman. She needs someone to talk to." However, Ifunanya began to feel something was off. She noticed that every time she visited Adaku in the late evening, the older woman seemed restless, her eyes darting toward the window as if waiting for something. One evening, Ifunanya decided to stay a little later than usual to help Adaku with some gardening. As they worked together, the sun began to set and the air grew cooler. Suddenly, Adaku stiffened and dropped her tools. Her eyes flickered towards the sky, and she hurriedly told Ifunanya to go home. "You must leave now. It's getting dark," Adaku said, her voice tense. Ifunanya, surprised by the agency, reluctantly agreed and left. But as she walked home, a strange feeling settled in her chest. Something was wrong, but she couldn't figure out what. That night, Ifunanya lay in bed. She couldn't sleep. Her thoughts kept drifting back to Adaku. What was she hiding? Why was she so insistent on sending her away before nightfall? Unable to shake her curiosity, Ifunanya made a decision. She would return to Adaku's house and find out what was going on. Silently, she slipped out of bed and made her way through the village, her footsteps light as a feather. When she reached Adaku's hut, she peeped through the small window. Inside, the old woman was pacing nervously, glancing at the door. Then, just as Ifunanya was about to leave, something shocking happened. Adaku's expression changed. Her eyes darkened and her movements became smooth. She opened the door and stepped into the night, moving like a shadow. Ifunanya followed her quietly, keeping a safe distance, she watched as Adaku glided through the village, passing house after house until she stopped in front of a small hut. The hut belonged to a young man named Emeka, known for his strength and bravery. Ifunanya's heart raced as she saw Adaku slip into Emeka's house. She waited for what felt like forever until finally Adaku emerged, looking even younger than before. Her skin glowed in the moonlight and her eyes sparkled with unnatural energy. What did I just witness? How come Adaku, an old woman with wrinkles, now looking young and beautiful? Shocked and terrified, Ifunanya fled back to her home, her mind spinning. She knew she had to warn the village, but who would believe her? Adaku had been living among them for years and no one suspected a thing. The next morning, news spread in the village that Emeka was dead. People wallowed in tears and great pain. How can Emeka, a once healthy and strong man, just die overnight? The villagers questioned. Days passed and Adaku continued to look beautiful and glow as always. However, one night, as she stood before the mirror, she noticed wrinkles on her face and her beauty began to fade. She whispered that, "I can't be an old woman. I am the most beautiful lady in this village and I need to maintain it." She set off in the night to undertake her usual duty, that which she does in the night hours. However, Ifunanya kept all that she had seen at Emeka's place in her heart, and this made her feel uneasy. She just could not shake it away. Therefore, she made a decision that night to visit Adaku's place, to see what Adaku does in the night. She sneaked out of her house and walked towards Adaku's hut. Just as he got there, she noticed Adaku walking in the dark, covered with a blanket. No one could identify her. Ifunanya quickly held herself by a mango tree that stood closer to her hut. Suddenly, she saw Adaku entering into the house of a young girl named Dele. Few moments later, Ifunanya saw Adaku coming out of Dele's house, looking very young and beautiful. Her skin sparkled like the dew at dawn. Ifunanya was shocked with what she was seeing. What just happened? She whispered to herself. This was the second time she had witnessed Adaku do something like this. This time around, she said to herself, Adaku must be exposed. The villagers must all know what Adaku does at night and why she always looks young and beautiful each time she visits someone's house at night. The next morning, Ifunanya gathered the elders and told them everything she had seen. At first, they were skeptical, but as they looked closely at Adaku, they noticed the signs. Her unnaturally smooth skin, the way she avoided being seen at night, and how no one ever saw her grow old. Thus, the village elders set a trap that night for Adaku. That night, they watched Adaku closely, and as the moon rose high in the sky, she made her move as she does always. This time, however, she was not alone. The villagers followed her. Adaku, as always, covered herself in a black blanket and walked slowly into a hut. A young man who pretended to sleep on a wooden bed laid on the mat. As Adaku leaned over to suck his blood, the young man opened his eyes, and to Adaku's surprise, she was surrounded by almost the entire people in the village. Adaku looked old and wrinkled. It was then that Ifunanya and the entire village realized the terrible truth. Adaku had been drinking the blood of the villagers to stay young. Adaku stood frozen, her secret finally exposed. The villagers, though shocked and angry, asked her why she had done such a terrible thing. Tears filled Adaku's eyes as she confessed. "I was afraid of growing old," she whispered. "I wanted to stay young, but I didn't know it would come at such a cost." The villagers, realizing the depth of her fear and desperation, decided not to harm her. Instead, they cast her out of the village, telling her that true beauty came from within, not from stolen youth. As Adaku walked away, her once youthful face began to fade, replaced by the wrinkles and lines of age she had feared for so long. The villagers watched in silence, knowing they had learned an important lesson, that fear and greed could lead even the kindest soul down a dark path. And so, Adaku disappeared into the night, leaving behind a village forever changed by the discovery of a terrible secret.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.